All right, guys, so massive economic news that I want to get to here with y'all in this video. We got Trump cratering the U.S. stock market amidst his all over the place, volatile, who knows what he's going to do tomorrow trade war. We also have warning signs all over the place of a potential recession on the horizon. And in the meantime, we have Donald Trump and Elon Musk outside the White House basically doing an infomercial for Tesla because their stocks are also tanking at the moment. So lot to get to here, guys. Let's go ahead and start over on Fox News, where it seems like a little bit of panic is setting in over Trump maybe not exactly knowing what he's doing in regards to tariffs.
And I think some of this is a sales job. They have to go out there and maybe stop talking about tariffs so much and start talking about how we're going to infuse the economy. We're going to release the animal spirits. We're going to deregulate stuff.
Which he has said in the past. Yeah, no, I think those are enormously stimulative, positive messages
Absolutely.
for businesses, especially, there have been a number of things in terms of depreciation on equipment, all that kind of stuff that business really, really loves. And also the enticement to open new businesses, which is something they want. They've got a lot of business coming in from overseas and building companies here in the United States. So all of that very positive. I think this whipsaw effect of the tariffs are in, the tariffs are out. And I see it from, small business owners who are trying to figure out their supply chain. Do I have to pay more on this or less on that? Do I have to stockpile stuff at my factories so that I, don't get underextended and out of product?
Is he serious?
Those things are tough.
Yeah, and is he serious or is he using this as a negotiating tool? We don't know. So there's always going to be turbulence in the Trump economic plan. But again, you got to lead with your best shot. And the best shot here is the tax cut.
Okay, so two different things on that. Number one, what they're right about is that every single day, sometimes like hour to hour, Trump is completely changing what his economic policy is, especially when it comes to this trade war with our closest trading partners. It's like one day the tariffs are going from 15% to 25%, and then, we're threatening to do it up to 100% on certain things. And then the next day he comes out and he says, never mind, we've resolved it. So it's like, are the tariffs on? Are they off? What percentages? What industries are we talking about here? What the fuck is actually going on? And they're right that that causes a lot of the economic anxiety that people are feeling, and it causes a lot of the market volatility that's currently happening right now. So they're right about that aspect of it. But point number two is, imagine looking at the current state of the U.S. economy, where people are struggling to barely afford just like basic life necessities, housing, healthcare, education, childcare, to put food on the table, right? Living paycheck to paycheck, if that, at this point. And you come away with the conclusion that what we need is more tax cuts and deregulation for the wealthiest multi-billion-dollar corporations in the country. That's what their conclusion is here. More trickle-down economics. That's what this country needs, because it's been such a roaring success over the last number of decades. Now, we move on here to the infamous Jim Cramer, who was getting into this on CNBC about how he's also worried about a potential manufactured recession, meaning not one that was caused by anything natural or organic within the markets, but one that it seems like Trump might be doing intentionally. So let's go ahead and watch this clip.
10% below the 50-day. That is an unusual number.
It's time for them to make a stand. I think a lot of them have come down too much, but if we have a recession, banks are the worst stocks. I don't think we'll have a recession. Like I said, it's manufacturing. It's manufacturing.
Well, that doesn't mean there won't be. I'm not sure I understand.
Oh no, manufacturing could easily cause recession. Absolutely. I don't. I'm not saying that manufacturing means it's not going to happen.
Right.
I'm saying manufacturing is that you can make it happen. And when you get angry and when you kind of lose your temper and you get mad instead of like the way Scheinbaum's handle it in Mexico, it gets people nervous and upset. They want the president to be a little happier. There's nothing wrong with being happy. You can be tough as nails and be happy. But right now it just feels like, we're going to just screw people have been screwing us for years and we're going to fight back, which is true. It's absolutely true, but you got to explain it very calmly and empirically how we're being hurt by in Italy, how we're being hurt by Germany, and this is going to stop, and we're going to make it stop. And then don't scream at those countries. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because they know that they can stand their ground. You tell them, look, I am going to scream at you. Help us, and we'll help you.
The process of retaliation is starting to come into full effect. We heard the comments yesterday from Canada about electricity taxes and Doug Ford. I'll gladly shut it off completely if I have to.
Smooth hauling, 60% increase in tariffs. There isn't anyone in any history book, and I know the president reads history, there isn't anyone in any history book that doesn't say that was a considered reason why we had the Great Depression. There isn't a soul who's ever said that. Look, go read Galbraith's book. It's really quick. It was a direct cause of the Depression, not the recession.
So it is playing with fire, you think?
Absolutely. But is it arson?
Meaning you can contain the blaze? Is that
no, meaning that you're doing it. maybe it's deliberate, and it doesn't make any sense.
Maybe it's deliberate and it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so again, he's saying not only are we facing, and he makes a comparison to the Great Depression there, but not only are we facing a potential recession, but if that happens, it's an entirely manufactured one by Donald Trump. It's essentially arson on the US economy. Now, again, I've talked about this before, so I won't get too deep into it, but like, I'm not entirely opposed to the idea of tariffs, but you have to do it in a way where you're specific, you're targeted, you have a plan of action in regards to domestic manufacturing, and the federal government is making investments in those specific industries so that you can bolster it here in the US. Like, you have to do it in a specific way. That's not what Trump has been doing. He's just been threatening or, engaging in widespread across the board tariffs on basically everything. And if you don't pair that with an increase in domestic manufacturing, as if that's just going to like magically happen somehow, if you don't pair it with that, then all you're going to end up getting is a potential recession, and you're going to have skyrocketing inflation for average Americans. So it's just like, unless the goal is, as he's saying here, which is to intentionally cause an economic crash. So I don't know, maybe the wealthiest people in society can come in at bargain bin prices and gobble up all of the assets. Unless you're intentionally doing that, then Trump's economic strategy right now makes absolutely no sense, even within his own claimed framework that he's trying to operate under. Now, we also have a little bit of backlash that was referenced in one of those videos in regards to Canada and some of the blowback that we're already facing right now, as Canada has threatened to cut off some of the electricity that comes into the United States. And we had Trump responding to that here. And this is just an amazing response for a couple reasons. He says, "Why would our country allow another country to supply us with electricity even for a small area? Who made these decisions and why? And can you imagine Canada stooping so low as to use electricity that so affects the lives of innocent people as a bargaining chip and a threat? They will pay a financial price for this so big that they will read about it in the history books for many years to come." Guys, he's criticizing Canada. Okay, now keep in mind, they're only doing this because of what Trump has done. Right? Because of Trump threatening to tariff the shit out of Canada and just start a full-blown trade war. But Doug Ford was threatening to like cut off electricity supply to specific parts of the northern US that, rely on that. Okay? And he's saying that the idea that Canada would threaten to use electricity as a bargaining chip is terrible. It's immoral. Can you imagine what kind of person would do that to innocent people? This is coming literally days after we just had Israel, okay, one of our top allies that Trump has been fully backing, arming, supplying, funding, giving cover for, just a couple days ago, cut off electricity to Gaza to the point where their desalination plants are no longer operational. Nothing to say about that, and that's an entirely different situation because we're talking about a bombed out, starved, and displaced population that has just been through an over year and a half long genocide that we've been fully complicit in. So there's nothing wrong with Israel using electricity as a weapon of genocide, but there's something wrong with Canada using it as like a leverage in negotiating tools. Now, just absolutely insane. But apparently the latest update on this is that they're sort of backing off of this. Again, all of this changes hour by hour. Some of the stuff I show you in this video may be defunct by tomorrow, and we'll have to do another update. But this is the latest on the situation with Canada, okay? According to Bloomberg, they say that Trump on cutting Canada tariffs, he says he's looking at it. Trump is saying he's looking at backing down on the 50% duties on Canada. He says that he may back off doubling steel and aluminum Canada tariffs. And keep in mind, this was something that he did earlier today. He was threatening to double steel and aluminum tariffs. And then now I get this update at 3 o'clock, just a couple hours later, and now he's backing off of it. We also have, he will probably make a different tariff decision. So what does any of this mean? Who the fuck knows? Nobody knows. And then you're wondering why the markets are all over the fucking place. Like, this is why. Because you can't make any sense of what his actual strategy is. And if it is all just sort of bluff, and it's all a negotiating tactic, then what exactly do you want from these countries? Like, that's still unclear what exactly Trump wants at the end of these negotiations with Canada, with Mexico. He still hasn't made that fully clear. We started by Trump saying that this was all about fentanyl, which was obviously nonsense from the beginning. Now he's talking about trying to pressure them to lower tariffs in certain U.S. industries. It's like, what is this? Clearly define what you actually want from them if we're going to do this whole thing, right? But he can't even do that. Now, in terms of how big this financial crash that just happened over the last couple of days is. So this is days down here. You can see in this graph, days since Inauguration Day, okay? And we're comparing Trump's first term to his second term. This is the change in the S&P 500, okay? Now, we're, roughly, I think we're getting close to like 50 days into the Trump administration. This is his second term, okay? The S&P 500 has plummeted in the first 50 days of his administration, even compared to his first term, where it was slowly and gradually going up. Now, the reporting on this is that there was 1.5 trillion that was wiped out from the stock market just yesterday, and apparently this is the worst start economically to a presidential administration since 2009, okay, after the '08 crash, which is absolutely wild, given that Trump did not start his administration with a crash, right? Obama in 2009 was coming in as this massive crash was going on. Trump didn't come in with that, and yet he's still the worst since 2009. Again, as pointed out here by MarketWatch. We also have tech megacaps losing over $750 billion in market capitalization in the worst day for NASDAQ since 2022. $750 billion lost. They also say here, in terms of how Trump is communicating with the American people, he says, you can't really watch the stock market. Really? Mr. New York City, Mr. Wall Street himself is now saying, right, the big, I'm a business guy, I know how to do business, I know how to do deals. Now he's saying, please don't look at the stock market, okay? Imagine if this was a Democrat in power right now, right? Imagine if this was Biden a year ago. You don't even have to imagine, because look at how Donald Trump was talking about the Biden economy with inflation and with all of these other issues, right? Imagine if Biden came out and he said, please don't look at the stock market. Okay, that doesn't really mean anything. Who cares what's going on with that? I mean, it's hilarious. Now, we also have, again, imagine if Biden had said this, right? Trump promised to bring down egg prices on day one on the campaign trail. Now, he just shared an article from Charlie Kirk telling people to literally shut up about egg prices. That was the headline in the article, was shut up about egg prices. Imagine if this was somebody else. This was one of the core things he was talking about repeatedly on the campaign trail. Grocery prices are out of control, folks. We're going to get them down on day one. The eggs, can you believe how expensive the eggs are? Unimaginable, folks. And now he's saying, shut up about the egg prices. Stop talking about it. Endure the pain, right? Again, as it's unclear what people are enduring the pain for. Now, we also have Tesla, moving on to Elon Musk and Donald Trump here. We have Tesla crashing back down towards reality in several charts. Here from the Financial Times. So the share price, as you can see here, going back to the fourth quarter in 2024, it started to rise sharply. Now, what was happening in Q4 of 2024? It was when Donald Trump was getting elected and people knew that Elon Musk was going to be a prominent figure around him. And so the stock price starts to climb and climb and climb and climb. And then roughly at the beginning of 2025, absolutely plummeting to the ground. And you can look at this in another way. Global worst performance in terms of share price from late 2024 to now. Tesla is all the way down here. They're the second worst in the world, okay, in terms of lost share price performance over the last number of months. They're down at negative 53.7%. They have lost 53.7% of their stock market value. Now, in response to that, and keep in mind, I think it is also important to point out, Tesla's stock is massively and wildly inflated. It's essentially based on an Elon hype train. Okay, it's not based on the amount of cars that Tesla actually sells. It's not based on how much they're really worth in terms of like raw value, like other car companies would be valued at on the stock market, like Toyota or Honda or whatever. Tesla's is miles and miles and miles above massively larger car producers around the world. And it makes no sense. It's wildly inflated and it should be coming down. Like this crash that's happening with Tesla stocks is a good thing and will bring them closer to probably where they actually should be at, right? But in response to this crash that I think Elon brought on himself by aligning himself with Trump and every other right-wing fascist movement around the world, we have Donald Trump stepping in to the equation. He says, to Republicans, conservatives, and all great Americans, Elon Musk is putting it on the line in order to help our nation, and he is doing a fantastic job. Hard disagree on that. He says, but the radical left lunatics, as they often do, he's talking about us, guys. The radical left lunatics are trying to illegally and collusively boycott Tesla, one of the world's great automakers and Elon's baby, in order to attack and do harm to Elon and everything he stands for. They tried to do it to me at the 2024 presidential ballot box, but how did that work out? In any event, I'm going to buy a brand new Tesla tomorrow morning as a show of confidence and support for Elon Musk, a truly great American. Why should he be punished for putting his tremendous skills to work in order to help make America great again? So I'm going to show you a video clip of them doing this stunt where Trump apparently bought a Tesla out in front of the White House. But can we just pause on what he said up here? He just said that the radical left lunatics are trying to illegally and collusively boycott Tesla. So now, apparently it's not just illegal, as we just saw with Mahmoud Khalil, to protest Israel. It's also now illegal to boycott Tesla. This is an illegal boycott according to the President of the United States. If you happen to not like Elon Musk or you happen to not like Tesla, it is illegal for you to not buy one, apparently. Now, here's a little video from this stunt that they were pulling. Again, absolutely wild shit here, guys. Like, we have the richest man in history standing next to the most powerful man on earth, Donald Trump, outside of the fucking White House doing an infomercial. This is utterly insane. Let's go ahead and watch this.
So all these cars won incredible awards. So they're great cars and they're American made. And I think, try it. You'll like it.
And I should say, beyond the cars, they're great. But we have to celebrate somebody that has the courage to do this. He could have said, I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to get involved. Let the country go to hell. He didn't want to do that. And remember, he's going to find, and we're up to almost $500 billion worth of waste and fraud and abuse. $500 billion. We're giving $2 billion here, $2 billion there, not millions. It was a bet. If it was $1 million or $2 million, that's a lot of money. But we're talking about billions of dollars being given to defunct, scams, given to people with nothing. They have nothing going. They open up a subchapter S corporation, and they put $2 billion into it.
Okay, so we have Trump erroneously, without any legitimate evidence, claiming that they've already saved $500 billion from Doge. Again, we've broken down all of the different numerical comparisons before and seen how frequently Doge has lied and misrepresented the so-called savings that they are currently getting. But towards the beginning, I mean, think about this, guys. Think about how desperate Elon has to be, how effective these boycotts must be, and the protests that we've been seeing at like Tesla, factories and Tesla dealerships, that he is having to do this, right? So I would say keep that shit up, because clearly he's feeling enough economic pain, right? And he's losing enough of his net worth that he feels the need to have to pull this kind of a humiliating stunt in front of the White House. I mean, it's kind of amazing. Now, we also have, to follow up on Trump saying that boycotting Tesla is apparently illegal now, Trump saying that he's going to designate attacks on Tesla dealerships as domestic terrorism. Domestic terrorism. We also have follow-ups here on Elon Musk, who apparently is saving the nation and saving the world and saving Western civilization, if you listen to him, who is doubling down on cutting so-called entitlements, meaning Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, etc. Let's go ahead and watch this clip.
The way it's important in entitlement spending, which is which is most of the federal spending is entitlements. That's like the big one to eliminate, because that's the sort of $500 billion, maybe $700 billion a year. That is also a mechanism by which the Democrats attract and retain illegal immigrants by essentially paying them to come here, and then turning them into voters.
Yes.
So this is why the Democrats are so upset about the situation, because they're losing. If we turn off this gigantic money magnet for illegal immigrants, then they will leave.
Okay, what are we talking about here? Illegal immigrants can't vote. They don't vote. That's not happening, right? Are we trying to say that there is a... Well, I guess we don't have to ask that question, because we know that Donald Trump does believe that there are, hordes of tens of millions of undocumented immigrants that are voting in our elections, but it's not true. right? And in many circumstances, they're not eligible for these programs like Social Security because they're undocumented, even though through their taxes, they're paying into programs like Social Security. So completely wrong on that front. But also, where's the evidence here that there are, in his words, like $600 to $700 billion in fraud in Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, right? I think we need some documentation in terms of where exactly you're finding that fraud. Because keep in mind, guys, Donald Trump is repeatedly saying, he just put out a fact sheet yesterday or today, where he's saying, we're not cutting these programs. We're not going to touch them. We're not cutting Social Security. We're not cutting Medicare. We're not cutting Medicaid. We're just getting the waste, fraud, and abuse. Now, when you're throwing out massive numbers like $600-700 billion in cuts, you know, along with the GOP and the House of Representatives cuts to Medicaid and food stamps and all of these other things, when you're putting out these numbers, it's like you are not just going after waste, fraud, and abuse. That mathematically is not adding up. You absolutely are going to be eating into people's Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And keep in mind, we also got that warning from the former head of Social Security, Martin O'Malley, who said because of some of the cuts that DOJ has already been making to the staff at the Social Security Administration, we are likely in the immediate future, in the next couple of months, to see Social Security checks stop going out because of what they're doing and throwing a wrench in every single government agency and program that they can get their hands on. So, I mean, listen, at some point, you're going to hit a brick wall. And you're no longer going to be able to claim, oh, we're not going to touch these programs. I promise we're not going to touch these programs. It's just going after waste, fraud, and abuse. But when people's grandparents, right, or their parents, or they themselves stop getting the checks that they absolutely legally deserve, then you're going to start running into some issues, right? Last couple of things here. We also had Rick Scott, who I believe was responsible for the single largest Medicare or Medicaid fraud in the state of Florida before he became the senator. And he says we're going to have to cut Social Security and Medicare and any program that you care about, apparently, as well.
Or people are they're thinking the way that Ron is saying that, you know, you can't cut. And that's all great. Then you're not worried about any program you care about, because Medicare is going bankrupt, Social Security is going bankrupt. You know, inflation can't go away, interest rates can't come down. So my belief is it's all going to. We're going to have to do this. It's good. Are we going to do it this year? Or are we going to do it next year?
Okay, so this is one of the massive lies that Republicans have been pushing for years at this point, for decades at this point, which is that we have no choice but to cut these wildly popular and successful programs because otherwise they're going to go bankrupt and then you're not going to have anything, right? Keep in mind, these are the same Republicans who in their newest bill and also under the previous Trump administration are punching a multi-trillion-dollar hole in the debt and the deficit in order to give a tax cut to wealthy billionaires and corporations, to the richest people in the country, while also raising taxes on the poorest people in the country. So you can't say we don't have enough money for these programs as you're using that money to give a tax cut to Jeff Bezos or to Elon Musk, right? Things are not really adding up there. But it's also bullshit because, as we've talked about before, with something like Social Security, it's not going bankrupt, right? At some point, I think in the 2030s, the Social Security Trust Fund is going to run out if we don't do anything about it. Then benefits will drop down to like 78% or so. And so you'll be getting paid out 78% of your Social Security benefits. But the easy fix to even that problem is just to lift the cap. Because right now there's a cap at over $176,000. Every dollar above that you earn, you no longer have to pay into Social Security. You don't have to pay that tax above $176,000. So somebody who's making $150,000 is paying into Social Security at roughly the same amount that somebody like Elon Musk is paying into it, worth $400 billion or so, depending on how Tesla stock is doing right now. But you get rid of that cap, and there's no issue with Social Security's solvency, right? So these are entirely contrived, made up, bullshit excuses for them to justify either privatizing or slashing these programs that are supposed to help the poor, the vulnerable, the sick, the elderly within society. Also that they can turn around and give a benefit to the wealthiest and the most powerful people within society. Not something that not something unexpected coming from a guy like Rick Scott, who again used to be the head of a company that defrauded these very programs that he's trying to cut. I mean, it's just amazing. Now, last thing here, and we'll end the video. Here from the Associated Press, they say that Republicans are advancing a government funding bill despite Democratic opposition. So I think this is going down today. We'll probably have a follow-up video on this tomorrow, depending on how the vote goes. It looks like they have a very thin margin in the House of Representatives, and they may not be able to pass a continuing resolution in order to keep the government funded. So in the very near future, we may be looking not only at a market crash, a potential recession, slashing of government programs and federal agencies, and massive trade war and things like that, but we may also be looking at a government shutdown at the same time. So 2 months in, barely, not even 2 months in to the Trump presidency, and things are not going too well.
Politic guy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying